of course, we battle on how much of a scoop to
But we used to
beans.
measure it, weigh it. Now it's about 3 scoops. Sometimes it's 3 big scoops, so it's close.
68 grams.
68.
That's the perfect.
Yeah, I think that's way more than we were using, so we need to buy more coffee from Trent.
Yeah. Well,
You just told us that.
68, could I use 69? I like 69 better.
70. No. That's a different story entirely. But yeah,
My favorite number.
Of course you go
always
there.
tastes good.
We're going to have to put an explicit on this podcast.
Starting, sustaining, and having a successful small business is hard, but you already knew that. But wouldn't it be great to have a podcast that talks to and digs in to the people who've made it? Problem solved. This is Local Vibes. Small business success stories. We'll talk to successful small business owners from around the country. You'll hear their incredible stories about how they got started and how they thrived and survived online and within their communities. We'll find out their special vibe. Welcome to our show, brought to you by localvibes.us.
Let's do this.
Now your hosts, Pat and Angie Cherubini.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie Cherubini, and this is Pat from Local Vibes, and we're back at it again. And today we're back at it with Trent Lundberg from Backroom Coffee Roasters. Is it Coffee Roasters?
It's Coffee Roasters.
Okay,
Yep.
I got it right. It right. We've known you. We were trying to figure this out.
It's been about 4 years, I
Yep.
think. Yeah, since that. I think it was the second year, the Horns Hill in Funduro.
Yep.
Yeah. That
Well,
we met.
We're big. If anybody knows me personally, I'm a big coffee person, and so there are only a few different coffees that I really, really like, and of course, yours is one of my favorites.
So you're the only one we
And I have
subscribe
it
to, that's
all
for sure.
the time.
Right in the field.
So, you know, we got to know Trent at a mountain
bike race.
Yeah, a mountain bike race out in Newark, Ohio, at Horns Hill. A big mountain bike race out there
Which will make sense when
Yeah.
Trent tells you the
When he
story
talks-
about how you
talks to
started,
you about
where
that.
the name came from. And
Yep.
So why don't you do that? Why don't you tell everybody first, you know, about the company,
Who you
how
are,
you
what
got
you do.
started, stuff like that.
So, Backroom Coffee Roasters started literally in the back room of the Trek Bicycle Store in Upper Arlington in 2010. And the whole story was the founders of Backroom, Chris and Kara Bishop, they owned all of the Trek stores here in Central Ohio. And they had some empty space in the back room of the Upper Arlington store that was going unused. And Chris was passionate about small batch coffee, about distilling his own whiskey, and also brewing his own homebrew beer. And he figured, why not try to make a business out of this? So he invested in a coffee roaster, went to coffee roasting school, and they put a small cafe in the back of the Trek store. So when you came to buy a bike or have your bike serviced, you could get a fresh cup of coffee, buy a retail bag, and eventually they actually had a sponsored cycling team, Backroom Coffee Roaster Cycling Team, which competed across all different disciplines: road, mountain bike, track, cyclocross. And so fast forward a few years, the couple sold the Trek stores back to Trek Corporate and moved the whole roasting operation up to their residence in Galena, just a few miles down the road from where we are now. We got to be friends through our sons and would go over to their place to socialize. Well, their residence had been owned previously by a private pilot who had a grass airstrip on one side of the property. They had this huge airplane hangar that was adjacent to the house where they had the roasting operation. So we'd go over to party, and they'd have the airplane hangar doors open, and you could smell the fresh scent of fresh roasted coffee wafting on the breeze, and you'd see all the little retail bags lined up like little soldiers. And my wife and I, we've been coffee lovers for forever, and when we discovered Backroom and the whole connection, we just absolutely fell in love. And it tied into my other passion, cycling. So I grew up racing bicycles from the time I was a teenager, was inspired by a guy by the name of Greg LeMond, who was the true first pioneer of American cycling over in Europe. He was a world champion in 1983. He was the first, and to this day, the only true American to win the Tour de France in 1986, 89, and 90. And if you look up over my shoulder here, this is actually Greg LeMond's World Championship jersey from 1989.
Sweet.
And our family used to promote a bike race down in Athens, Ohio called the A to Z Cycling Classic. And in 89 and 90, Greg came and did our event.
Oh, cool.
And in 1990, Lance Armstrong came and competed in his first year as a professional cyclist as well. But so it kind of, the whole, the cycling and the coffee kind of dovetailed nicely and was very appealing to me personally. And my wife Melody and I, we had been looking for something to invest in. Our kids are getting to the age, my son's in college, my daughter, she's a sophomore in high school, but in a couple of years she's going to be out of the house, and we were looking for an investment. And in 2018, Chris Bishop, the husband that started Backroom, approached us about buying Backroom. He had taken a job in Boulder, Colorado, and was looking to move but not uproot the business. And the planets literally were in alignment, fell into place, and we bought it and jumped in off the deep end. Didn't know the first thing about the coffee business, but it was a profitable business. The business came with 2 employees. There was a nice supply chain built. There was a steady income stream from a number of high-profile clients. They had Whole Foods Market, still do. We've got Fresh Time Markets, a lot of the upscale grocers around town, in addition to a lot of B2B customers. And so it was very appealing to us.
All from the back room of a bike shop.
All from the back room of a bike shop. Yep.
Gotcha.
That's crazy.
So, first question I have is, where do you go for coffee roasting school?
Yeah.
So,
Good question.
So the place where they went was the gentleman's name's Paul Ribich, and Paul had his own roasting school in addition to designing roast profile software. So the actual software that drives our coffee roaster, he designed that. He also now has his own coffee roasting or coffee roaster company. So he's got a company that actually builds the equipment. But at the point where Chris went to roasting school, he was selling a roaster called Ambex, which is what we are using now. Ambex originated in Turkey, and it was one of the premium brands, still is very well respected in the industry. And so he went to this coffee roasting academy, and that's where he learned to roast. Passed it down to a couple of his employees that worked in the bike shop, had coffee fans, but had never really had any experience with roasting. Taught them the process, and the one employee that when we acquired the business had been roasting with Backroom for about 5 years, and so we were able to I was able to absorb all of the information when he came on board, and that's how I.
So you learned straight from him.
I learned straight from him, as well as reading quite a few books about coffee roasting and the different process and
digging in
the nuances and really digging into the nuts and bolts of it. Still learning. I wouldn't say I'm the absolute aficionado of it, but we've got it down pretty good. As you know,
Yeah.
You guys are direct recipients of our products. So
I have to say your product, he has a monthly subscription, which, how's that going?
Fantastic.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's hasn't been that long since
No.
you started it.
We switched over. So when we first bought Backroom, they were on the Squarespace platform. And Squarespace, when it first came to be, was more design oriented. They had an e-commerce component to
Yep,
it,
yep.
but it was pretty bulky. It really was not very
Too simple.
user friendly. It's too simple.
Yeah, you can't do a lot with it. Not like, are you on Shopify now?
We're on Shopify now, and
Yeah.
that's been leaps and bounds
Yep.
better than Squarespace. Visually, we could still use some help, but as far as an e-commerce platform, it has streamlined things so much for us. And the subscription service, we use a company called Payworld, which is kind of a third-party vendor within Shopify, and it's been a pretty seamless transition for us. Really simplified a lot of the day-to-day stuff.
You just get like notifications every day of who's up and who's to ship.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
nice.
Because I love when I get the shipment, because we live like an hour away.
Yep.
You know, we're close, but not that close. And do you have anybody out there? Any vendors?
Not at this point.
Not out there?
No.
So that's the only way we can get it. But I always show, we just got some last week and I showed my son the way you package it every
Yeah.
time. I'm like, that's the way it's done.
Well, you have a marketing background.
Or
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Truth be told.
but I can't take full credit for it. I'm a graphic designer by training, so I am a little particular about how
Yeah.
I like to have things packaged. Conveniently enough, the U.S. Postal Priority A boxes fit 4
Perfect.
bags of our coffee absolutely to a T. So yeah. it
Yeah,
works
the
well.
presentation, when you open it up, it's like every time I'm like, it is, because you alternate
Yeah.
every label.
Brown, blue, brown.
Yep,
Well, your
upside down.
presentation
right.
with everything. When we first met Trent, which was up at Horns Hill at one of the events up there, and you had your display up there. Even your displays are always,
Thank you.
You take a lot of time in your displays, and then obviously your new. Well, it's not new to us. Your
bean buggy.
The bean buggy.
Yeah.
That's really neat. I mean, you've done a great job of really making your,
Branding.
because there's coffee everywhere.
Right.
There's competition everywhere, but you do a great job of setting yourself apart.
Thank you. Well, we're all old enough to remember Andre Agassi.
Yeah.
When he used to do, was it the Canon camera commercials?
Yes.
Image is everything. It goes so far. I mean, you can have a top-notch product, but if your branding and your marketing isn't on point, you're going to get left in the dust. And it's still a challenge for us, especially me. We're a small business. We've got just myself, one other employee, and then my wife doing the books. So it's a family-run business. But being able to wear all the hats and be effective at everything has been just an ongoing struggle for us. I'm hoping that local vibes can help us kick it up a notch in that arena. I definitely have certain opinions as to how our brand should be presented, but I have a hard time coming up with fresh content on a daily basis to be able to post consistently, and content calendars and stuff like that it's just a struggle for me.
What kind of events do you guys typically do?
So some of our biggest events, we do the whole Columbus Cars and Coffee season, which comprises about 10 to 12 events throughout the year.
Oh, I did not even know that.
And we've
I've heard of
gotten,
Seinfeld's comedians in cars and coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't know there was a Columbus.
Have you ever watched that?
I have.
Yeah,
I love it.
Me
I
too.
love it. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. But so the Cars and Coffee has generated a lot of exposure for us with very high profile clientele, which is, the first year that we had the Bean Buggy out and about, it was a learning experience figuring out what events would do well for us and what events did not.
Can you tell people what the Bean Buggy is?
We'll have to show a picture.
Oh, yeah.
If you're listening, you can't see it, but
So the Bean Buggy
put it in the show
is
notes.
a converted 1975 Merhow horse trailer that we contracted a local industrial artist to convert into a kind of a shabby chic country themed
Coffee shop on wheels.
Coffee shop on wheels.
It is so cool.
Thank you. And we wanted something that was not your average run-of-the-mill Grumman step van food truck. Those things are a dime a dozen. And didn't want to have something, even though my background is a graphic designer and specializing in vehicle wraps and all of that, didn't want it to have that commercialized flavor. I really wanted it to be more authentic and more in line with the Backroom brand, which we don't take ourselves quite as seriously as I think some coffee companies do. Not trying to throw shade on anyone, but I think that a lot of times if you go into a retail coffee shop, you're kind of looked down upon. The baristas and they know a lot more than you do, and you may not be worthy of their knowledge. We don't want to convey that vibe with Backroom, especially when we pull up in the Bean Buggy. We consider everybody to be our friends, and we want it to be very welcoming and approachable. And so the Bean Buggy, we wanted just to be, memorable, top shelf, but not taking ourselves too seriously. And I think we hit that goal.
Yeah,
And you even
nailed
said, we literally call ourselves Local Vibes because that's what we look for.
Yeah.
It's not the corporate sterile, it's not groovy as a vibe, but it's just you have that trailer especially has got its own vibe.
Thank you.
And
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
You're looking for those places.
And one of the most interesting things, speaking of the Columbus Cars and Coffee schedule, is we pull the trailer behind a 1988 Chevy C3500 one-ton vintage truck, and we'll pull up to these events, and people, the Cars and Coffee crowd, it's the Lamborghinis and the McLaren.
I was going to ask, is that a club?
No, it's just
a meeting.
It's a meeting.
Just a meetup.
So anybody can bring their cars, but typically it's the
Showing off.
It's the show off,
Yeah.
Richie Riches, and everybody goes absolutely nuts over. We call it Old Blue, the truck. People just can't get enough of Old
The one that's
Blue.
down there.
The one that's down
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Old square body.
Yeah, the old. Well, it's the old body style, which
Yeah.
was the next generation
Okay.
after the square body. But it's got the 454, and it's got. it hits all the buttons as far as the vintage trucks are concerned. But
Still got a carburetor too, probably.
it still has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was the first year of the EFI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the very first year. But people they gravitate towards it, and they
Really?
get pictures posted every event we go to.
Really?
It's really interesting.
So they do your advertising for you,
Absolutely.
or marketing for you.
Well,
That's cool.
it's reciprocal. One
Yeah.
of the things we really love to do with our partners is pump them up as much as they do with us, and it just elevates everybody.
Right.
You hit the algorithm, and it goes out to not just our crowd or their crowd, but both, and that as well as I do.
Yeah, and you were saying that you don't know what to post. That's one of the hardest things we run into, and that's, honestly, we run ads because we're not very good at posting either. We
Yeah.
run out of time.
Yeah.
We
It's
a
tell
time
every
factor.
single client, you need to post more. You need to post about this. You need to make videos. You need to do that. And we run out of time. We don't do it either. So, it is hard. And if you have something engaging like that other people are posting for you,
Then that
that's-
helps.
That's a home run.
Yeah.
And I know that reposting works occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I've been guilty of doing too many reposts, and I've been taking more advantage of Instagram Reels,
Mm-hmm.
which has helped certainly, but consistency's been my major challenge. Yeah.
And it's funny. It's that algorithm thing that drives me crazy. I know I follow you. I don't think I've seen you for a while, because if you don't click on something after a while,
Yeah.
they stop showing you, and it's literally the ones I want to see.
Right. Well, yeah, I need to get back on a more.
Well, I think that's just the way that Facebook and Instagram especially work now. I've heard TikTok. We're not on TikTok, but
Will not be on TikTok.
I'm not going to be on TikTok either. But the premise behind it is there's much less of an algorithm that if you look at your reels probably on Instagram, all your views are probably similar. I mean, if you've had one pop off maybe, but they're all similar. For whatever reason, that algorithm just kind of evens everybody out.
Yeah.
The big guys, the Kim Kardashians, they get tons and tons and tons. But on TikTok, there are people that I've heard have 2 videos and the second one gets like 1 million views. Because if it's viral, it stays viral.
Right.
On Instagram, if it's viral, they start
They throttle you a little bit.
back. Mm-hmm. And there's really nothing you can do about it other than give them money to advertise it. But that's
what they want.
I think it may start to shift a little bit because TikTok is eating everybody's lunch.
Right.
And, they're trying to be TikTok now. So maybe they'll change a little bit, but I haven't seen it yet.
Which was kind of the impetus for the Reels, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a direct, they stole Snapchat and stories from Snapchat.
Yep.
But
So I know recently we've been talking a lot about the fact that you traveled for, was it 2 weeks in El Salvador?
6 days, yes. So
6
mid-January, we went, myself and 2 of my friends went down to El Salvador at the invitation of my friend Guillermo Cruz, who he and his brother own a coffee plantation called Finca La Piedra, which literally means stone farm. On
Really?
the side of Chaparastique volcano. It's an active volcano outside of San Miguel, El Salvador. And actually met Guillermo at the Columbus Cars and Coffee event.
Oh,
at
you
Nationwide
did?
Arena last year.
Some major
So
networking.
this is the reason for the trip then.
This is the reason for the trip.
Ah.
Yeah. And so,
Excuse me.
Like we were talking about earlier, the bean buggy, while it's generated some revenue for us, it's more about the greater exposure that we've gotten as a result of being at all these different events. We do quite a bit in New Albany. We're members of the New Albany Chamber, and that's given us an additional exposure and gotten us access to customers such as JP Morgan Chase and whatnot. But back to Guillermo. Guillermo approached us last year at this Nationwide Cars and Coffee event, ordered a cup of coffee and struck up a conversation, introduced himself, heavy, Latin accent, and introduced himself and said, I own a coffee plantation in El Salvador, would love to have you come down sometime. We met here at the roastery. He brought us some of his roasted coffee from the plantation, and also brought us some green beans from the plantation for us to roast. And quite honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the coffee that had already been roasted. He's got a guy that roasts for the plantation and for their local customers. That is a Scottish guy of all places. This Scottish guy has been roasting for something like 20 years. He converted an old washing machine into a roaster.
What?
I know, it's bizarre, but anyway, so they roast this coffee, and it wasn't to my liking, and so I said, well, hold on, Guillermo, let me roast a batch while you're here. Roasted it up, and his eyes perked up. He's like, this is amazing. This is so much better. I was like, thank you. So at any rate, we had a couple other conversations and made plans to go down to Finca La Piedra. And so mid-January, went down there for 6 days, stayed on the plantation at an elevation of about 3,800 feet, about halfway up the side of this volcano, which had erupted just weeks before we went down there. And so
Really?
there was still a lot of ash covering different parts of the plantation when we went up there. But it was trip of a lifetime. Aside from our honeymoon, where my wife and I went to Italy, it was probably the best trip I've ever been on. And I thought I knew a lot about the coffee industry and all that, but until you've seen it with your very own eyes, from farm to cup, how the whole process works and how much labor is involved in not only the picking but the transport and the processing and the drying and the packaging and the shipping and all of these different steps to be able to get to what we're enjoying in our cup today, gives you a true appreciation for not only the work that's involved but the value in a quality cup of coffee. People, I think, by and large, they go to the grocery stores, they get the can of Folgers or a bag of, Starbucks or whatever it is. They don't really have a true understanding. It's like any other farming industry. They don't really, unless you see it with your own eyes, you don't have a true appreciation for what's involved and why things cost what they cost.
So does he only provide beans to like smaller establishments like you, or does he supply it to like Starbucks and places like that too?
So Guillermo is he's a businessman. He actually has a trucking company.
Does he live here?
He lives in New Albany.
Okay.
And he's been in the United States for 6 years. He and his brother acquired or bought this plantation just 2 years ago, and the plantation had been sitting dormant for a number of years, so a lot of it was overgrown. The plants were there, but a lot of them still needed to be cultivated and pruned, and a lot of work needed to be done.
Lots of TLC.
A lot of TLC to get it back to an operating.
What makes a coffee plantation stop production?
So El Salvador in the 50s through the 70s, it was kind of their heyday of coffee production. It was their primary form of revenue for the country. Mm-hmm. And then the problem was El Salvador had 14 families that controlled the entire country and owned all the property and everything, and there was a huge disparity between the very wealthy elite, the families.
It always works out, doesn't it?
It always works out. The control of the government, and then the peasants that extreme poverty.
Yeah.
And there was an uprising. They had a civil war, and so the government at that point did what was called an agrarian decree, which basically they took a portion of the land from these 14 families and made it available to the general public to be able to buy and be able to farm and
break up the monopoly.
Well, when the Civil War was going on, a lot of the farms went into disrepair and got overgrown.
Gotcha.
Families got run off, and so slowly El Salvador has been building back into their economy has revived. They've put a new president into power about 4 years ago, who's very much of an authoritarian and has put a lot of money into the military and the police to go and seek out, like the MS-13 gangs were real strong down there. They've thrown more than 50,000 people in jail.
Oh, really?
And really cleaned up the country tremendously. And so this farm, this Finca La Piedra, had been sitting idle for a number of years. Guillermo and his brother saw an opportunity, bought it at a very reasonable price, and have slowly been rebuilding it. They have a coffee engineer who travels to a lot of the different fincas. Finca means farm in Spanish. Travels to a lot of the different fincas locally and will take daily, soil conditions and the condition of the plants, and they've got different plots with the different coffee varietals, and it's very, very scientific.
And you can really truly taste the difference.
And you can really truly taste the difference.
Bringing up that question that you have. Okay. What gives coffee that licorice-like taste? On some of them,
sour.
or I mean, there are some places I go that's the overall flavor. It's got like this licorice taste to it, and it's just, it's awful. And I just don't know what that is. Is it the type of bean, or?
It has to do with the type of bean. It has to do with the region where the bean was sourced from, the soil conditions, the elevation.
I wonder if it's Kenyan.
I don't remember what it was.
Does Kenyan coffee tend to have that type of?
It depends. Yeah, possibly.
Have you ever been to? There's the only one that I can really think of right now is the one in not Granville, the one in Gahanna. I know it's on the strip in Gahanna,
Right
down
there
by the
at,
river.
Creekside.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. Upper Cup.
Maybe.
I'm not sure, and I don't mean to cut them down at all. It's just not
flavor.
my flavor, but
Yeah.
I mean that's the flavor of their coffee. And every time I've been in there a couple times, I forgot the second time that's
Well, it's
the
kind of like,
flavor.
beers. There's IPA. There's different flavors, and not everybody loves every flavor.
Right.
That one she didn't love.
Well, and so another couple other factors that play into it are how long ago was the coffee roasted? How dark has it been roasted? So you had mentioned sour notes. So sour notes are typically tasted in lighter roasts. The darker you roast, you're going to get away from that unique flavor profile, and you're just going to get more roasty, I don't want to say burnt unless you go all the way to like a French roast, which is super dark. But in the case of like Starbucks, for instance, I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people have the misconception that Starbucks is good coffee. It is, and I'm going to throw shade at Starbucks, it's garbage coffee.
I will go in an airport is the only time I will never go to a
because
Starbucks.
there is absolutely nothing else to get in an airport.
Right. And so the reason why Starbucks has been so successful, marketing,
No, for sure.
and the creation of these
Milkshakes.
drinks, the milkshakes.
Yeah.
They've got all the garbage on top that masks the taste of their truly horrible coffee. And I equate it to pork rinds. I love pork rinds, but the reason why I love pork rinds isn't because it's fried pig skin. It's the seasoning. The rind is just the carrier for the seasoning.
Right.
And the bottom of the bag, all that stuff at the bottom, that's my favorite part. And it's the same thing with Starbucks. It's just a carrier for the milkshake and all the toppings. Sugar.
People don't truly have coffee. I mean, they really don't. They have flavored drinks, flavored coffee
goes
drinks.
To Starbucks and orders a black coffee because it's.
Or they look at you like, what?
Yeah, it's rancid. And so Starbucks, imagine how much coffee they sell daily and how much volume, how many farms they have to source all this coffee from. Well, there's no way to have individual, unique, micro lot coffee. They have some grades that they'll sell bags that are smaller, but typically they'll take huge lots from all these different farms and bring them into these huge central roastery operations. The roasteries are, just one of the roasters is as big as our building. And so they dump all this coffee in and they incinerate it.
Huh?
So you can't taste any tasting notes. It's just burnt. And that is, that's the polar opposite. That's a big misconception that, it's good stuff. Now there are other companies like Pete's. I've been a longtime fan of Pete's before we got into.
If we're not drinking yours, we're drinking Pete's.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Or
Coffee Shack
in town.
Yeah. Not familiar with them, but
we definitely prefer local for sure. Local,
Well,
he's one of ours, and then you, and then the only other one I will have to say in Destin, Badass Coffee.
Okay.
Or is it It's Badass? Yeah, it's from Hawaii.
It's a small franchise.
Just real small.
Okay.
And actually, weren't they from Columbus?
No, the one in
owner?
Destin was owned by somebody from Columbus.
Okay.
We're going to a coffee shop in Florida, and it's a bunch of Ohio State stuff.
We are coffee snobs. We are definitely coffee snobs. When we go on vacation, when we go anywhere, we usually have to have coffee, but typically from a coffee shop. I have to. We go on vacation, and I'm like, okay, we got to try this coffee shop and this coffee shop, and
that's. I mean, our support local. I mean, coffee is something we drink every day, and obviously we're in business. We support capitalism, and I don't have any problem with Starbucks. It's just when they get that big, they injure all the other small places. So that's why we would, how do you get people to stop by in Folgers and Starbucks to try a local roasted coffee?
That's the $1 million question.
Uh-huh.
It's a challenge, and it's very organic for us at this point. We don't have the marketing budget of a Starbucks or a Tim Hortons or a Dunkin' Donuts,
or the location on the highway,
or the 1,000 locations on the highway that are 2 blocks from one another, and lines that wrap around the building and out into the street and all that. So it's very very organic, very one-on-one. Like I said, back to the Bean Buggy. The Bean Buggy has definitely elevated our brand and our visibility. And like I mentioned to you earlier before we started the podcast, we are pursuing the possibility of franchising these buggies and turning other people on in different markets to the Backroom brand through building out these trailers and licensing Backroom to
that's such an easy little franchise opportunity for people.
It really is.
It's awesome.
It gives the end user a lot more flexibility than a standalone brick and mortar store where you're chained to a multi-year lease with the landlord. Unless you acquire the building and are the outright owner, it's a losing proposition. You have to meet that nut every single month. And the idea of the Bean Buggy, when you're done with an event, we come back, we pull it into our building, and we close it up and plug in the electricity to keep the refrigerators running, and we on down the road we go.
How many local roasteries do you know? I mean, how many are around?
Yeah.
Like
roasteries?
Typically in a bigger city, are there a lot?
Yeah, there are. Here in Columbus, I'd say that there are probably 10 to 15.
Do you guys all know each other and stuff?
We know of each other. I wouldn't say that we know each other intimately. I'm friends with a couple of them, and we give each other likes occasionally. But at the end of the day, it's competition.
Competitors.
We want to like things too.
Yeah. And that was kind of where I was headed, because I have a saying that we talk about all the time. It's you're competing together.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, when I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about breweries, beer, because even 15 years ago, maybe 20, you can't make your own beer because Budweiser makes all of it, and Coors and Miller, you can't compete with them. Now they compete with them. They take a big chunk out of that, and a lot of those guys compete together. They have each other's beer on tap, and they support each other because they're fighting a bigger fight against the gigantic people.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. So one of our brewing partners, Zaftig Brewing, they're based in Worthington. Zaftig, they have used our coffees in their beers for a number of years.
Nice.
I'm friends with one of the owners. Actually, he comes up to hunt. He's a deer hunter. Big passionate deer hunter. He comes up to hunt on our property, and he's brought his son up here a couple years ago. Son bagged his first buck, big, huge 10-point monster.
On your property?
On our property.
Nice.
He's 10 years old, and he slayed his first buck. And I said to Jim, my friend, I was like, where does your son go from here? I mean, he got the monster. Everything's
retire out and go out on top.
Exactly. But Jim and his partner, they just signed a deal with Columbus Crew at the new Crew Stadium to be selling their beer at the stadium, along with Land Grant and
I like Land Grant.
Wolf's Ridge.
And I like that.
So no major
Well, Budweiser has the concession stands,
Gotcha.
main stuff, but these guys have their own standalone kiosk, I think, within the stadium. So they're going to be, representing the local brands.
So will one of yours be in there with the coffee?
Still working on that. Haven't. This just happened last
Oh.
week, so we'll figure that out. But
Nice.
It's good to see the David versus Goliath story and them going up against it. One of the things that Budweiser did years ago is they started acquiring some of these microbreweries like Red Hook. I don't know if you remember Red Hook.
I remember Sam Adams. They bought them up real quick. And
Yeah. That's how you eliminate competition.
Right.
You assimilate. And so from a roaster standpoint, it's a challenge every day. There's a Crimson Cup here in town. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the local coffee roasting community. And Greg Hubert, the owner, has done a phenomenal job with growing his business. He and Stoffs were pretty much the first third wave coffee roasting companies here in Central Ohio. He's got a number of franchises and coffee shops around town, in addition to interests in other businesses. They go in, they source direct from the farms, they help the local economies by building schools and hospitals, and helping build in a well taken care of workforce. So it's very savvy, and so you've got Crimson Cup up here, and then the rest of us are kind of, I don't want to say fighting for the scraps, because that's not the right word, but there's a ways to go.
Working your way up to what they did.
Working your way up, yeah.
It's so strange because it's not a local product, but it's finished. You can't get coffee here. It doesn't grow here.
Beans.
The beans itself. That it comes. Was it Equator? Is that the general?
Yep. It's so they call it the Ring of Fire, which is basically the equator and the just
hot.
It's got to be hot.
But high altitude in hot.
Typically
regions.
High altitude is where most of it's sourced from. So we've got beans that we source from Indonesia, from Sumatra, Bali, Central America, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Mexico, and South America. We've got Venezuela and Colombia and Brazil, and African beans from Ethiopia and Tanzania,
Kenya.
all over the world.
Was it hard did you have any issues when the supply chain stuff was going on?
We did, and we continue to have issues because, the cost of shipping went up exponentially. And one of the major problems we have is the ongoing conflict between China and Taiwan. The South China Sea is a major shipping route coming from Indonesia and around the globe to get to the United States. And a lot of the ships had to reroute and not go through the South China Sea, and the prices have literally doubled on our shipping. And the challenge is being able to maintain our price without having to price ourselves right out of the ball game.
Still make a profit.
So our margins have gone down quite a bit. So we have to scramble and go and solicit more customers and really shake the bushes to get more coffee lovers on the Backroom.
Did the price of the beans change? That's a commodity.
Yeah.
Is that just up and down all the time?
It's up and down. In the case of Brazil, Brazil had a major cold snap last year, and so as a result, the supply of Brazilian beans this year has gone down, and as a result, the price has gone up. So it's constantly fluctuating. One of the things that us as coffee roasting owners can do is buy a lot. So buy, a quantity of beans and lock in a price. But then that depletes our capital to be able to go out and do other investments. So it's an ongoing struggle for sure. Yeah. And then the cost of packaging. Our packaging comes from, as much as we would like to be able to source domestically, there aren't many companies here that produce the bags that we package our coffee in. And so the company that we use, even though they have an office in Chino, California, it's a Chinese company. As much as I don't like having to support that, we really don't have a lot of
There
options.
isn't any other option
Anybody
for
out
it.
there know any packaging companies?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Make coffee bags.
there's actually a company here in Columbus that does packaging, but in order to make it worthwhile for us, we would have to change all of our branding to fit their packaging, and we'd have to purchase
Too much.
We'd have to purchase substantially, probably 2 to 3 times what we purchase now, and it just doesn't make economic sense for us at this point. We found a domestic source. We tried their bags. The problem is, so coffee bags have what's called a breathe valve. It's a one-way valve. It allows carbon dioxide to escape, and it doesn't allow the oxygen to come in and degrade the beans. People think it's a sniff valve. Has nothing to do with being able to smell the coffee. It's so the coffee can breathe. Well, when coffee is first roasted, there's still what's called outgassing. There's still chemical processes that are happening. You want to seal it as quickly as possible to keep that freshness in. And if you don't have that breathe valve in the bags will explode.
Really?
Really?
It'll explode on the shelves. And
Didn't know that.
Yeah, and so we found this domestic company to make these bags for us. And we bought 10,000 bags, started packaging them and putting them on our retailer shelves. The bag started to blow up. And it was a nightmare. Eventually got a full refund after a lot of back and forth and battling, but so we're back to our original supplier.
So did it not have the breathe valve, or it just didn't work?
It just didn't work.
Gotcha.
It was an inferior valve. There's a lot of technology that goes into that little valve, and
So did they change it? I mean, based on what had happened with you?
no, they said it was our method and the way that we roast and package our coffee, which is baloney, because our existing supplier, their valves work just fine. We never had a problem with it. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
I didn't know that. So that's something new I've learned. Did you know that?
I had no idea. I figured that was the way you packaged it and sucked the air out of it, but not the other.
Yeah, it actually allows the CO2 to escape, and so the bag doesn't, erupt.
So I know one other cool thing that we've talked about, and I did see you post about that. Something where it was with the automated thing.
The coffee robot?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Tell us about that.
I didn't
and what
see
that
that.
is.
I don't
You
know
didn't
what
see
you're
that?
talking
It was
about.
when was that? That was
about
last year.
November, late November, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the customers that we acquired as a result of having the bean buggy at these events was J.P. Morgan Chase. They have their world headquarters here in Columbus, about 15 minutes away on Polaris Parkway. And for people that don't know, their headquarters is the second largest contiguous building in the United States next to the Pentagon. And
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
yeah, and so their main hallway at their campus is a quarter-mile long, and in
Really?
the center of this hallway is an area called the Commons. And in the Commons, they have the busiest Starbucks in the United States, serving coffee to 12,000 employees is what they've got on campus at any given point right now.
I did not know that.
17,000 employees is their maximum capacity, but due to COVID and everything, they are slowly bringing the workers back.
Kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming. Exactly
Yes.
right. But these, they have to have their coffee.
Yeah.
And so Starbucks, is making a bleeding mint off of them. But back to how we came to be with J.P. Morgan. we're at this Little League soccer event in New Albany with the bean buggy, and this gentleman comes up, orders a cup of coffee, the Biker Blend, which is our signature roast, and one that I think you subscribe to.
Yep, that's the one we get.
He gets this cup of coffee and takes his first sip, and he said, "Oh my gosh, this is the most amazing cup of coffee I've ever had. Want to hear the whole story about Backroom and how it started and everything." And introduced himself as a vice president of small business development for JP Morgan Chase, and said, "I'm going to make an email introduction. I think you'd be a great fit for JP Morgan," and yada, yada, yada. Well, within 15 minutes of walking away, he'd made this introduction to his vice president of facilities management worldwide, and also the VP of Aramark Food Services, which has contracted to handle all the food and everything to do with anything food related at JP Morgan. Had a meeting with them. They fell in love with the brand, and so now we're in JP Morgan, and directly across the hall from the Starbucks is a grab-and-go convenience store called The Union, where they've got our coffee bags as well as our biker bars, which is a coffee chocolate bar that we developed about 2 years ago. And they
I don't
approached
think I've
us.
seen that either.
You haven't seen him
biker bar?
post a biker bar?
Oh, well,
The algorithm
Wow.
hates me.
yeah, we'll show that to you when we're done.
Okay.
So they, once we were in and generating some interest, they approached us about doing this project for this coffee robot. And so this company is based out of San Francisco, and there are only 2 of these units in the United States. The first one they put into operation is at the San Jose airport, and the second one is right across the hall from the Starbucks. And so they serve Backroom coffee exclusively, and it is about a 10 by 10 kiosk, and you order through a QR code. It's got a full menu, so they've got Backroom Espresso, our Biker Blend, our decaf, as well as our cold brew, nitro cold brew on tap. And so you place your order, and it's got a robotic arm that goes and makes the coffee. It'll make an espresso or make a latte.
Oh,
does
my
a little
goodness.
swirling and places the cup in this little tray, and a window drops down, and you reach in and grab your cup, and off you go. And this has generated so much publicity for us, and people, when it first was launched in November, people were crowded around it taking pictures and video, and oh my gosh, it was just the most amazing.
Is your branding on there?
Our branding is on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you know that you've gotten people specifically from there
Yes.
because of it? You do
Yeah,
know.
so on our website, when you order, it said, "How do you hear about us?" And they can type in exactly, and we've had quite a few people that was like, the coffee robot at JP Morgan Chase, and
That's awesome.
it's pretty cool. So
Well, that's awesome that you do that. And that's something that we tell people, survey, ask your people.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, where do your customers come from? Because we deal with a lot of local businesses, and the answer is always word of mouth, which is the best possible, but it's the hardest to get more of.
that's right.
Hardest to scale.
That's right. So that was something that we implemented shortly after we took over the business from the previous owners. We added that, which when we were still on the Squarespace platform, and it was basically radio buttons, Google, Facebook, whatever, and we've kind of done away with all that now. Basically, it's just a window, and they can type in what it is, and it's been Google searches, it's been Yelp. Yelp's been,
Really?
even though we don't subscribe to Yelp, we've gotten a lot of it off of there. Instagram has been our big one. That's been our main driver. Again, when I post, and I'm the one that handles the social media, it posts to Instagram and Facebook, but for whatever reason, and hopefully you can help shed some light on this, Facebook just hasn't performed for us.
Did you say Facegram?
It's Facegram.
Instabook.
Snappy Chatty, and I my Facebook is nothing of what I want to see.
Yeah.
You take good pictures. I mean,
Yeah.
that
And
also
Instagram is more towards, food,
Visual.
beverages, that.
But it makes
It's
a
easy to look
difference
at.
when it's good
Oh, for
pictures.
sure.
I mean, we talk about it all the time. Most of the time we don't know where to go to eat a lot of times, and we want to go somewhere new.
Yeah.
And, a lot of restaurants and stuff just don't understand. Just post that special.
Yeah.
Well, we had one in
the
town.
The pictures just draw me in. 1922, I always see that.
Barrel and Boar, that's not downtown anymore, but they're local, 6 chain, something like that. They posted one. They had Sunday brunch.
Oh, yeah.
This was a couple years ago, and it was like she was like, hold the phone up and say, "We're going here."
Yeah.
And we
Chicken and
literally
waffles.
It was chicken and waffles. It was fantastic,
brunch.
and we went like 10 times because
Yeah.
of that post.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know they had brunch.
And actually, I got a lot of people to go because of that post, too.
Yeah, well, and so the challenge that I have is because we don't have a retail coffee shop, is the scope of our content's limited. We're basically in a warehouse
Right.
here, and I can only take so many pictures of bags of coffee or
The roaster.
or so a lot of it's come from the events that we do
Yeah.
with the Bean Buggy, and I've rehashed some of our posts. I'll take a picture on the Bean Buggy and repost it 6 months or whatever later, but you can only do that so many
Yeah.
times for it to be effective.
Ads are definitely going to be more effective for you,
Yeah, so
for sure.
How wide do you go? I mean, I know you've got Whole Foods, you've got Central Ohio. Do you have people from other places finding you and ordering?
we do. Actually, I just had, so one of the things that Shopify, they're constantly upgrading and adding different features, and just recently they have this Shopify inbox where customer can message you when they're on the website, and it'll go to my phone immediately. It'll go to my email too, but I can respond quicker. I normally respond quicker to this
Right.
inbox. It's like a text. And have a customer in Frisco, Texas, orders. He's got subscription, and he's sending coffee to friends and family there locally. And he wanted to make a change to his subscription, so he inboxed me, and we had a conversation and said, "No problem at all, Jason. I'll take care of this." And just had his subscription re-up for the month today, and he wanted to make a change from our Sumatra to our Ethiopian. So change is made, and I'm able to ship it out to him. But we've literally got customers coast to coast. We've got customers in Seattle of all places.
But Starbucks is there.
But Starbucks is there, and Stops is there,
Pete's up
not
there.
Stops, Pete's. But they just love the whole Backroom, the quality of
story.
our coffee and the story and everything else.
So how many of them come from the
Stories are
story are bikers? Because your
What?
bikers blend.
Yeah,
Is it Harley guys? They all think it's bikers, or they understand your story?
It's
Doesn't matter.
interesting because I was a longtime motorcyclist, and unfortunately had to give that up because of a couple accidents. But by and large, it's the cycling community. But from my years in the motorcycle community and the friends and contacts that I've gleaned there, I've got quite a few motorcyclists as well. Actually, one of them, the Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum down in Leeds, Alabama. It is the largest collection of vintage motorcycles as well as vintage race cars. They've got multiple race tracks, testing tracks, so Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, they all take their vehicles there. Barber, we sell our coffee in the Barber Motorsports gift shop.
Really?
Yeah, Biker Blend. I've done posts with them, friends with their director of restoration. He's a cyclist, pedal bikes as well as motorcycles, and he's a fan and spreads the gospel. So we've got that in our arsenal as well.
Awesome.
Wow, that's cool.
Even had so we do a fair amount of private label coffee for different customers. My background is in graphic design, and conveniently enough, I'm able to produce labels in-house, not only for our bags, but for customer bags as well.
Do you roast for others or just the bags?
Yeah, we roast for others as well. And one of our customers is a microgreen farm on the island of Oahu. And
Really?
Yeah. And
Because they don't have any coffee over
because
there.
they don't have any coffee. You know, Kona's.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Sourcing coffee from Galena, Ohio, all the way to Hawaii.
But I guess they over there, they specialize in Kona. So they probably don't have all
They don't have
the other
Backroom.
kinds.
Yeah.
That's true. They
Is
don't
it the
have-
story or the coffee?
It's the story, it's the coffee, it's the contacts that I've made. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the old
Relationships.
adage. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And it's as much relationship, but the relationship wouldn't mean anything if the quality of the product
Oh,
wasn't
for sure.
there. And so that was kind of a unique one as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is. I had no idea.
So you've got Seattle taken care of. You got Hawaii taken care of.
Texas,
You
we've got Florida, we've got North Carolina. I've shipped to Arizona. I've got a guy down in Arizona outside of Flagstaff that orders 5-pound bags of our biker blend religiously. When everything was happening with COVID, we kind of had to revamp our shipping strategy. You know, when we took over Backroom, it was buy 3 bags and shipping's free anywhere in the continental
Yeah.
United States. Well, it didn't make any sense because we ended up, if we're shipping bags to California, we're paying you to drink our coffee. And so we've had to adjust that. A lot of companies still offer free shipping. I don't know how they're making any money unless it's the economies of scale and they're just
Buying cheap.
buying cheap. But we've had to adjust it. We'll still, if people buy 4 bags of our coffee or hit the threshold of basically a $60 threshold, if they're in our Zone A shipping zone, which is essentially the state of Ohio and the immediate surrounding area, we'll ship free. Outside of that initial shipping zone, we'll split the shipping costs with you 50-50. And we've had a little bit of pushback, but not much. People understand,
Oh.
especially with a small business, nothing's free.
Well, and I think people need to really think more about, and I think people like us, we do. Yes, we may be spending $60 on coffee every month on the beans, but all these people go and get Starbucks or any of the big name coffees, if you want to call it that they get. They're
10 cups of coffee.
$7, $8,
Yeah.
if not more, for one of those drinks, and they're getting them daily.
Right.
You're spending way more than what I spend on a monthly basis for quality coffee that I can grind myself. I think that makes a big difference
Exactly.
too. I like it to be fresh
So
ground.
you're the coffee expert. What is the key to the perfect cup of coffee?
Oh, good question.
Because I tell her all the time, I love your coffee, but every now and then I'm like, we have a board meeting every morning in the hot tub.
Yes.
The executive committee gets together, usually at like 5:30 in the morning.
Perfect meeting.
And that's where we drink our coffee.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it was last week, I said, it's always good, but one day I was like, it's really good today. And we make it the same way every time, but every now and then it's really, really good.
Well, so there are a lot of components that go into it. Most people think that the beans are the most important part of the equation, and being the coffee roaster, I'm going to say, that's there's some truth
Obviously.
to that. But it's quality water and a quality burr grinder. If you do not have a proper grinder to grind your fresh beans, the flavor profile is going to be very uneven. It's not going to be consistent. You're going to have larger granules and you're going to have fine powdery stuff. Like if you get one of those blade grinders, those cheapo stuff that you can get at Target or whatever.
Yeah, we don't
It's
have that.
not going to give you a consistent quality cup. Water is the most important thing. The grinder is second. The coffee is third. And the way that you make the coffee is fourth. So, and how fresh the coffee is, how well it's been sealed. If if you have a fresh thing of coffee and you leave it out, leave the bag open, it's going to deteriorate a lot faster. So if you have it in a sealed container,
That's what we do.
opaque container, put it inside room
Oh, it's not
temperature on
opaque,
shelf.
but it's in the cupboard. So.
It's in
Yeah.
the cupboard. Then you're fine, as long as it's out of direct sunlight. Another misconception that people have is put it in the freezer and it'll stay fresh longer. You do not want to put your coffee in the freezer because it draws out the moisture and it will, freezer burn the beans. And it's not good for it. Room temperature, out of direct sunlight.
Ours
All right,
doesn't
so
last that long, so.
Our strat, it's in a airtight container in the cupboard. We have a burr grinder.
We have the right grinder.
We have filtered well water, and
And didn't we get the coffee pot based off of
the Technivorm
last time?
Technivorm
The last
Mocha
time we were,
Master,
yeah.
mocha. That's what we
I
have.
like it.
So I'm trying my best.
It's a
we-
great machine, for sure.
Maybe I just didn't. Of course, we battle on how much of a scoop to
But
put
we
in
used
the
to
beans.
measure it, weigh it. Now it's about 3 scoops. Sometimes it's 3 big scoops, so it's close. But
So for the Technivorm, we've got the same brewer in the house. We use it every single day. 68 grams.
68.
That's the perfect-
Yeah, I think that's way more than we were using. So we need to buy more coffee from Trent.
Yeah. Well,
You just told us that.
68. Could I use 69? I like 69 better.
it's 70. No. That's a different story entirely. But yeah,
My favorite number.
Of course you
it
go
always
there.
tastes good.
We're going to have to put an explicit on this podcast.
That's hilarious.
I just can't keep those comments in.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
It went downhill like a ball.
So we
68
definitely
grams.
we don't use enough then.
Grams, yeah.
I feel like we
need
were
to
using
measure-
45
You know what? We need to measure that when we get home.
for sure.
Find out.
Have you gotten one of our coffee scoops?
I do
Yes.
have
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
So
about.
it's-
I think it's about 8 scoops.
Really.
Yep. 8 heaping scoops is about 68
Of
grams.
beans.
Of grounds.
Of
Oh,
grounds.
okay.
Okay.
Yep. Is it interesting that you say about amount of coffee? So we have a commercial customer that buys tons of 5-pound bags from us every month, and they're very serious about their coffee, I thought. And they had, I don't know, whoever, the ladies at the office who were making the coffee were not making it. People were complaining that it was too weak. So my contact at the business just today emailed me, said, how much ground coffee should we be using for a 2.2 liter air pot that we're brewing into? And I said, well, you need 6 ounces of coffee. Well, how many cups is that? That's about what's exactly 2.11 cups of coffee. Oh, well, the girls were using 1 cup of coffee. I said, well, there you go. Sounds like you're going to be ordering a lot more.
Double your order there. Need twice as
I
much
bet
coffee.
most people don't know
No.
what they really should be using.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't like strong coffee. Older people, especially.
Yes.
Our parents drink brown water,
Yeah.
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 Folgers. And when
Yeah.
they come over to our house, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But they also drink it all day long.
True.
Yeah. People are like, you must drink your coffee constantly. I have 2 cups in the morning, and unless I'm having a meeting,
Yeah.
which I'll have another cup or 2. I don't drink any coffee the rest of the day. If I'm out at an event, we've got nitro cold brew on tap. I'll have a cup of that, or occasionally an espresso, but I just,
Yeah, we have a big cup in the morning and
Yeah.
usually an afternoon cup and try to
yeah.
get out of it. 'cause
Yes.
I could drink a lot.
Yeah. Me too.
And it does nothing for me anymore.
Well, and
does for me.
that's the same here. I've got built up a tolerance to it.
It's like people drinking Red Bulls or something. I wish it woke me up, but I could drink a cup of coffee and take a nap.
So it's speaking of Red Bull, one of the products that I discovered when we were down in El Salvador, actually it was shortly before that. It's called Cascara, and Cascara is the fruit husk, the part of the coffee cherry. So coffee, it grows on a coffee tree. It's actually a cherry with the coffee bean in the center, just
Which
like
I know so many
like the
people don't
pit?
know that.
Is it the pit of the fruit?
it's the pit of the fruit, yeah. And so there are actually two beans in a coffee cherry. So the surrounding cascara, typically the coffee plantations will discard it or use it as fertilizer after it's separated during the processing portion. But you can dry it and make it into a tea. And it is absolutely delicious. It's got a citrus, juicy, kind of almost like a floral, like a hibiscus taste to it. And when we were in El Salvador, we went onto up into the different coffee groves, and we're there picking the coffee with the workers, and you can pull these coffee cherries right off the tree and put them in your mouth, and it is juicy and sweet, just like a regular cherry would be, and you spit the beans out.
Spit the pit.
But it was just absolutely astonishingly delicious how good this stuff was. And so when they were done harvesting a bag, they would load it on the truck and bring it back down the mountain. They'd weigh each bag at the end of the day before taking it to have it processed. The weight of the bag with these cherries in it would compress the juice, right? And so these beans are all shiny, and you could just drag your finger across these things and taste this as like the sweetest syrup you've ever had.
Really?
Yeah, and so the cascara, it's not a well-known product in the United States yet. I've seen a couple roasters that offer the stuff, but by and large, the challenge is it doesn't transport well unless it's properly dried and sealed. It has to be at a certain humidity level and everything but we are in the process of developing an energy drink product with this.
Backroom is?
Backroom is.
Nice.
And the other cool thing that we discovered down there was on the plantation they have beehives. And these bees pollinate the coffee trees and take the nectar so the coffee tree has this big beautiful white blossom prior to the harvest season, and so the bees pollinate the trees and take the nectar and make coffee honey, and it is the most exceptional tasting honey I have ever had.
Really?
Really. I'll share some with you before you
Okay.
And so we are going to combine these two products into a...
So you know who Jake Paul is?
Yeah, I am.
Well, he started on a podcast, so maybe you'll be up there with his prime, doing about $1 billion of coffee, honey, energy drinks.
Hopefully I can get
Can you box?
His boxing chops,
You just got beat.
Floyd Mayweather.
You just got
It's
beat.
interesting. I actually just learned more about honey just recently. A friend of mine who I did her logo for, it's called Lavender Ridge Farm. They have
An event center.
Yeah, it's like a little event center, and they harvest honey and now lavender and then sunflowers, I believe, in the fall.
She needs coffee.
Yes, she does.
The wedding venue is beautiful.
They don't drink coffee at weddings, do they?
Old people do.
It would be beautiful up there. I'm telling you, it's gorgeous. They've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
But they have spring and fall honey, and I'm not a honey connoisseur. I didn't know that, and so now I have spring and fall
Different color,
at home.
it tastes different.
Well,
It's totally
from the same
different
hive.
color.
Yeah, and the beekeepers that know their stuff can tell what plants the bees have been pollinating.
Yes, she knows. She knew.
I never knew any of this.
It's like the sunflowers in the fall
Yeah.
and the lavenders in the spring. And I mean, like I think Blake said, our son said that he likes the fall, and I kind of like the fall better. If I have it on my steak, I like the fall on my steak and stuff. It's
You're
just,
weird that you put
I
honey
know.
on your steak.
I know.
Steak. It's kind of
so
like
good.
it's
with
like
salt and a little bit of honey.
yeah, it's like maple syrup and drag your bacon through it.
Yeah.
Do the same thing.
Well, she put syrup on her sausage.
Just a
Yeah.
little bit now because I know it's
Sugar.
so full of sugar. But yeah, it's pretty weird that
Well, I'm-
you're talking about the honey.
I'd
I just
anxiously
learned.
await that coffee, honey.
It'll
energy
be
drink
interesting
with-
to taste the honey that you said you've got. But yeah, an energy drink with that, so it's all,
Working.
it truly is natural.
So you've got coffee,
Natural.
energy drink, a bar.
Yep, our biker bar, which is Belgian dark chocolate combined with coarse ground bits of our biker blend. So each bar has about 2 cups of coffee worth of caffeine content in one bar.
Oh, geez.
Get out.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Who makes that? Or is it, do you make it here?
No, because we're not
You're not
a
processing,
fully
gotcha.
licensed food production
Yeah.
facility. We've got a local chocolatier that produces
Nice.
those for us. So I design the molds and the packaging and everything.
Of
and
course you did.
that's what I do.
So
It's great.
what's on the horizon? What's the big giant thing that you want to do that you just haven't done yet?
Make millions and millions of dollars. Go on Shark Tank.
Shark Tank with
Yeah.
your Bean Buggy franchise?
Or that, well, no, now the energy.
The energy drink. I'll tell you, the energy drink. Jake, I haven't had it yet. I don't know if the Prime drink. It's.
Not
I
had
mean,
that.
he is a master marketer. You know, whether you like him or you hate
Oh,
him, he is getting eyeballs on his product, and
He's such a showman.
for sure. And there's another group, the boys watch, and it's from YouTube. They're called the Nelk Boys.
Not familiar.
They do just same like stunts and act stupid, and they were a bunch of young guys that went ballistic, and
Yeah.
they made a seltzer called Happy Dad. I've heard it tastes terrible, but they did the same. You can't buy it anywhere because it sells out as soon as they launch it. It's gone, and
Yeah.
you know they make way more money off of their products because they have eyeballs. It's media.
Well, what's the old saying? If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, you baffle them with
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So what would you say is your most memorable experience so far then with
with the
Business.
coffee business.
Yeah,
El Salvador.
that's what I figured.
Without
Had
question.
you never been to Central South America? Or
Never been to Central South America, never been to Mexico. I've been to Canada, been to Europe twice, but it was completely foreign and completely exotic and intriguing, and we were treated like kings while we were down there.
Really?
And just
Did you have to fly into a larger city?
we flew into San Salvador.
San Salvador.
There's only one international airport in the entire country, and that's San Salvador. El Salvador as a country, you can fit 2 times into the state of Ohio. So you can get from one side of the country in about 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's coast to coast.
Coast to coast, literally. And so where we stayed, the home that we stayed in, the fortress basically is what it was, had a wraparound deck on it that overlooked the Pacific Ocean, and off in the distance there were volcanoes with our Chaparastique in the background, and just every night the sunsets and watching it disappear into the Pacific.
Wow.
And just spectacular.
And how was San Salvador? Safety? You felt,
Yeah, I felt-
being an American, you were cool?
Well, we were
Escorted?
we were escorted. Our hosts are very well connected there. So actually, Guillermo, his best friend from when they were little kids, Fernando was worked with the Ministry of Agriculture for many years. So he knows the president personally, and so it wasn't
That's nice.
It wasn't your
You were VIPs.
we were VIPs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. And it's crazy how that little, I mean, you call it networking, but you weren't, I guess it was, that Cars and Coffee is a
Yeah.
networking meeting.
Yeah.
And you met a guy from New Albany that is from that's just crazy.
yeah, And if-
the small world thing comes in, but
it really does. And if it
What a
weren't
great connection.
If it weren't for the Bean Buggy, none of this ever would have happened. JP Morgan Chase wouldn't have happened. We've gotten access to other clients. We did a Ferrari event, a Ferrari VIP event at Midwestern Auto Group last fall, again as a result of the Columbus Cars and Coffee and the Bean Buggy and all of that. But the access that has given me to another level of clientele beyond,
for sure.
walk-in customers that you would get at a coffee shop It's just
You
it's
can't beat it.
invaluable.
Yeah.
So do you have your Lamborghini wrapped with your logo?
No, but it was really cool. We so my friend Tomas is their head salesperson, and he and I got to be buddies through just all the events we did out at MAG last couple seasons. And it was the end of day 2, and he's like, "Hey, you want to take a test drive?" I was like, "Absolutely!" I got to test drive 2 Ferraris.
Nice.
Did you really?
Yeah, and we're in the VIP Ferrari. They have a special lounge area. We're serving coffee to CEOs of companies that were waiting for their Ferraris that were on order. So it was kind of an event to placate them until their cars came in and come out and test drive a couple. And so yeah.
Is that in Dublin? Is that where you were?
Yep, got to drive some Ferraris and get the bags of coffee in front of the Ferraris. And
Shirley got pictures of those.
oh yeah, you really haven't been on the.
I'm telling you.
I didn't see that one.
I mean, she does. My Facebook got hacked.
Oh yeah.
It's been almost 2 years ago. I mean, we were on the boat on Buckeye Lake.
Because it was before it was right at the beginning of
Yeah,
COVID.
it was right during. And we run ads for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I have Facebook and Google, their limits are usually once you spend $500, hey, you just spent $500.
Send you a notification.
I get notifications all the time. $500, American Express goes through. I'm on the boat and I see $500 all the time. I know what it is. It's my ads. I am on the boat and I get $1,500. I was like, that's from Facebook. Sometimes they add up things. And,
Sri Lanka.
well, and it was like another $1,500, $1,500, $2,500. I was like,
And we're on the boat.
I'm on the boat. And I'm like,
Your ship's sinking.
I am calling. I'm
6
on
feet down.
American Express. I am calling. Stop this card. I am not authorizing this. They got 15 grand right off the bat. You can't call anybody at Facebook. You can't do it. I said, stop. I changed my card. I stopped my card on American Express. Well, she's got a card on it too. It's a business account. It just rolled over and started taking it from her card.
my gosh.
Like, no! And I
You
couldn't.
didn't have a hotline to Zuckerberg?
No, I couldn't stop
Wish.
it. It took 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
To-
How much did they end up?
It was 15. They took 15 grand.
But all of his,
But
all
they
of
shut
our
down.
accounts.
I lost all my ad accounts. Everything
Had
I
to
had
be
ever
recreated.
run for any company and myself. To this day, I still can't Facebook message money to my kids because my account is banned.
What a nightmare.
Oh, it
It was Vietnam. I'd get on my account and it would be all changed to Vietnamese. And I'd change it. I even had the 2-factor authentication. I had all the security stuff. They still got in. I changed it. And then once I had changed it, they already had access to it. So they had changed my email and the phone. So when I'd say, send me a new card, I forget my password, it would go to them. I got it changed
crazy.
twice and they changed it back. I was going crazy.
Oh man.
And it's
What a nightmare.
It's emails this long explaining what happened, why it's not. I ended up they gave me all my money back, but to this day my account, it's like burned.
Yeah.
I'll say, did you
gets
see my
no
post?
reach.
I'll say, did you see my post? She's like, I didn't even see it. I'm like,
Yeah,
I posted it 6 feet from you and you didn't even see it.
And that's one of the reasons, because that happened with him or with us, we really try to make sure people know, especially small businesses, don't use social media as your main website. I mean, there are so many people that still, to this day, I will go to their Facebook and then click on their website link and it goes right back to Facebook. I'm like, what are you doing? You're using Facebook as your
Only website.
your website and you don't own any of it. They could shut you down so fast. And I mean,
do.
it's literally, I see it still to this day, which is crazy.
It is crazy. That's scary.
And there's no recourse. They shut down. I mean, people in my business, they just, you can't say things like, you can't make a claim like we always have. We do a lot of doctors, and you can't, like a chiropractor saying, I can fix your pain. You can't say that.
Right.
They'll just they'll ban your account forever if you say that. So you got to be careful what you say, because you usually got 1 or 2 chances, and then it's just final answer. You can't have it back.
That's right.
You can never
I
advertise
lost my
again.
personal account last year, and not exactly sure how it
Facebook?
happened. Facebook, yeah. I had Trent Lundberg, which is gone
I
now.
wondered.
Yeah, and tried to appeal and never got any answer back, and gone. So Coffee Man is it, and then I've got Backroom, and
Well, when you also start to understand the way the social media companies valuations, it's per user.
Right.
How many people like you have made 2 accounts? My mom's got 2. Everybody, you get locked out, you make another account, their value goes up.
right.
I think that's something to that, but what do I know?
A lot. A lot.
So, we hit everything?
My trusty list of questions. This is a good one. What advice would you give to somebody who maybe would want to start up? Or, not that we want people to become your competition, but if someone was thinking about doing something like that, what are some tips that you have for them?
Probably my I don't want to say my number one tip, but I would say if there's any possible way to go it alone and not take on partners, do it. Even if it means, digging a hole for yourself temporarily. I found that being in business with partners muddies the waters, and too many cooks in the kitchen, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, whatever it is, or it's a bad recipe.
I've always heard the only ship guaranteed to sink is a partnership.
Well, I like that one. I've never
Yeah,
heard that
that's a good one.
That's
I get it. Even it's, there's strategic partnerships that can work, but for, small business to start,
yeah.
completely
it's,
understand that.
It's a daunting challenge to start a business. I've got 2 of them, and I tell people at this point, I don't know what I would do without having these businesses, because at this point I'm unemployable. Nobody'd hire me.
For sure.
But if you can possibly avoid it.
We have not had a job in 25 years. There's no way I could go back to work.
No, absolutely not.
No way they could afford me.
Fortunately,
Right.
That's exactly right. And fortunately, my wife, she still works. She's a store manager at Saks Fifth Avenue at Polaris. So we, with the benefits and insurance and all that, it's kind of a luxury for me to not have to worry about that. But would not recommend getting into partnerships if you can avoid it. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's good. Very good. Do you have any other questions?
So you've got the website. How do you get the word out other than posting on Instagram every now and then?
I've tried Facebook ads and haven't had much success, and maybe I'm just not, I'm an amateur. I'm a rank amateur. Don't know the first thing about it other than, picking your target demographic and, how far out your reach goes and how many days and what your budget is. Maybe I wasn't spending enough. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hit the right keywords. I don't know. I mean, I've gone, Google search, top keywords for the coffee industry 2022 and things like that. But it's been a very shooting rubber bands at the stars kinds of things, very haphazard. So that's been my major.
Did you get any sales from it? Do you know?
If I
From
did,
Google, you mean?
Not much.
Just from the ads?
Oh.
Not much.
Was it Google or Facebook?
It was Facebook.
Facebook.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
done any Google ads. Most of it has been word of mouth, been Instagram posts, been what we've been able to glean from the events and with the bean buggy. We had a number of people that were loyal Backroom followers from back when it was still in the Trek store that came over, but we've got a long way to go. So that's why I'm talking to Local Vibes that maybe they can help us
Very
up our brand.
Well, the brand, I mean, obviously the branding is fantastic. So, you know, you got to get in front of more people. That's
right.
That's the answer every single time.
Well, what's your elevator pitch when you have somebody that
why buy Backroom?
Why buy Backroom versus somebody else?
Because we're the best.
But Starbucks is right around the corner.
Well, again, I go back to the pork rind.
Yeah.
You know.
Is there a type? Who buys your coffee? I mean, is there a customer age group?
Yeah, what are the demographics?
You know, what are your demographics?
It's customers are typically from 35 to 55. It's not the
Instagram girls with their name on their cup.
It's not the Instagram girls with the name on the cup.
And their Frappuccino.
Yeah. It's you know, typically college educated professionals. They're particular about their coffee. They, much like yourselves, they like sourcing local. They're not big supporters of the huge brands. They like to, you know, grind their own beans. They like to do, you know, specialty roasts.
So it's funny. Do we know anybody that grinds their own beans?
Besides us?
Yeah. I mean, our family always
Your
looks at us
cousin
like
Kelly
we're crazy.
is the only other person.
But they
that I
all
know.
buy canned coffee and
Yeah. That's
And
not
I
our
scold
customer.
them all the time. I'm like, why are you drinking this?
Yeah.
And if Dad or Mom, you're listening, you're one of them. I call it, what do I say? It's definitely like water. And they always know now that they're like, Angie needs to brew her coffee separately. Even if I have to be subjected to that other crap. It's like I have to do it after them because I have to make it like.
you have to put coffee in it.
Yeah.
Way stronger.
Way
69
stronger. 69 grams.
That's just right.
Perfect. It's just right for both of them.
I think that's about it.
How can people find you?
Yeah.
Throw out your
Backroomcoffeeroasters.com, so you can order directly from our website. And as I mentioned earlier, if you order 4 or more bags here in Ohio and the immediate surrounding area, 4 or more bags, shipping's free. As long as you hit that $60 threshold, we've got mugs for sale. We've got travel mugs. We've got the biker bars.
Hold up your mug.
We've got, there you go. That's our lovely ceramic mug. $12 on the
Still drink it.
website. You can also find us on Instagram at Backroom Coffee. We're on Facebook, Backroom Coffee Roasters. If you go on the website or on the Instagram, a lot of our posts have links to the products, so you can go and it'll direct you through to the website and the ordering and all.
How many products do you have? Coffee. How many coffees?
We have 16 different roasts to choose from.
Wow.
In addition to the biker bar, we are going to be reintroducing our canned cold brew here in the very near future, as well as hopefully the Cascara cold drink energy beverage. So there are some things.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Really excited for that. Well, we'll make sure that we have links.
Links in the description.
Links in the description for this, so they can get directly to it and get in touch with you if they need you for anything as well.
Also, we do private and public events. So if you've got a wedding or a graduation special event where you'd like to have a unique kind of a specialty coffee type thing, we travel with the bean buggy and
Nice.
yeah.
But we'll definitely put a link to some bean buggy pictures because that is
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's got a local vibe.
It does have a local vibe. A really cool local vibe.
Like those local vibes.
Yes. Well, I think that's all I got.
Yep.
Appreciate
That's
you
all I
doing
got.
this. This is fun.
Appreciate
It
you
was
having
fun.
me.
Very educational. Now I know how to make my coffee better,
Yes.
if anything.
Hard to improve upon perfection, but there you go.
Well, I think it was user error. We weren't using enough coffee.
It was user error.
Being cheap.
69 grams.
69 grams.
Key.
So I measure it before I grind it. Doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Because that's what we just measure it and throw it in, grind
Okay.
it, and then dump it out.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not using enough then.
we'll find out. We'll measure it. We'll weigh it tomorrow, and we'll find out, and we'll report
Fantastic.
back.
You'll be ordering bi-weekly instead of monthly.
We have run out. 4 bags.
I know you were kind of in a panic when you have you shipped it yet?
I've been sick.
I had the order, and I was thinking that you were coming last Wednesday, so I didn't. I didn't.
Oh, that's
bother to
right.
print the shipping label.
That's right.
You know, so gotta watch every penny I can.
Yeah.
But I'm
Could've
glad
saved
that
the
it
shipping.
made it, because it's no fun to be, between shipments and not having any fresh biker blend.
We will have to order more because we're going to be using more.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, we've got 5-pound bags on the website too.
I've seen that.
We'll have to do that.
That's probably it.
More for less.
So are we done?
I think so.
Great.
All good.
Thanks for listening to the Local Vibes Podcast, brought to you by localvibes.us, where we help small business owners like you build the ultimate system that generates more leads, phone calls, and most importantly, more customers. Join our community by going to localvibes.us and add your business to our directory. You'll also find live discussions, tips, podcasts, videos, and just plain real talk on how you too can be more successful online.